Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 6 Degrees of Associations. I am your podcast host and producer, Casey Callan, and today I am joined by Stacie East. She is the Director of Equity and Grants with the Entomological Society of America, ESA. This is a role she started during the pandemic, which I will ask her more about later in this episode. And, I'm just going to start off the conversation by asking Stacie to tell us about her role and how she got involved in the world of associations.
Casey, thank you for having me on 6 Degrees of Associations. I love to talk, so this is a great opportunity to speak with someone new. As far as how I became an association professional, so I was a lawyer. I practiced law from 1992 through 2018. I was active in a variety of bar associations. So I volunteered and was on the board of directors for the Earl B. Gilliam Bar Association, which supports Black attorneys and members of the legal profession in San Diego, the Lawyers Club of San Diego, which represents women attorneys and women, and then the San Diego County Bar Association. I loved being on boards. I love associations. From there, after I termed off of the board for the San Diego County Bar Association, I became a contractor for what's called the Diversity Fellowship Program, which was created by the San Diego County Bar and Association of Corporate Counsel. And it places minoritized first-year law students in internships during the summer between their first and second years of law school. And from there, when I was wanted to stop practicing, I went, and I also taught at a local law school. So I taught at a local law school, and I recruited people for the Diversity Fellowship Program from that law school, and lots of lawyers have relationships to that law school. So I ended up going there to become Associate Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And I worked there for 2 years and continued to teach, and then transitioned from that position to the Entomological Society of America, which I started there in October 2020 as their first ever diversity type staff position, and filled that and have been there since.
Stacie, tell us about what it's like working remotely from California for an association that's based in Maryland, and also what's changed from the time that you started this position during COVID to now as we find ourselves 3.5 or so years later.
Well, I feel like from the time I got my second COVID vaccination, I've just been traveling. So that's what's changed. I didn't meet any of my coworkers in person for 6 months. So not until I started in October 2020, and then I met people April 21. I like remote work. I really like to be alone, and I really like to be with people. And I feel like remote work with a lot of travel is the perfect mix. I'm either 100% with people or I'm 100% alone, and that's okay.
Got it. Stacie, I'm curious, as someone that's worked in associations, but I haven't actually worked in one since 2021, if there's still a strong work-life balance in the association world that you're seeing out there.
I feel it is. I practiced law for 25, 26 years. And to me, that was not work-life balance. I had my own practice for 10 years. So I can only compare it to what I did for the first 26 years of my career. And that felt unbalanced. This feels more balanced. Travel obviously creates certain challenges. And I feel like I've had to learn how to take care of myself and travel. That is a qualitatively different experience than trying to take care of yourself with a local law practice or take care of yourself when you're going into the office every day. I think that that's a different skill set, and I'm learning it.
Well, I really appreciate you being so open and honest with us. And I want to ask about your background. You're not going to toot your own horn, but I'll do it for you. You've gone to Yale Law School, you've gone to the University of Chicago for undergrad. These are some of the finest institutions in the country. And I was just curious if there was any advice you would give to a younger version of yourself that was kind of just starting out at the University of Chicago.
So I loved University of Chicago. And I don't know what University of Chicago of 2024 is like, but University of Chicago of the mid 80s was a school for misfits. And I was a misfit. It was great. There was no social pressure. And so I would just say, enjoy it. Just have a good time. I loved being a student at University of Chicago. So yeah, I loved it. And I don't know that I have any other advice for me because I feel like I made the most out of it.
And you're someone that owned their own business. You had your own law practice for many years. And I'm curious if there's any takeaways from when you were a small business owner that you've gone ahead and taken with you now to the association landscape.
For me, when I opened my own practice, I was working a lot. The job that I had right before wasn't the most healthy experience. And so I by going out on my own, got a chance to create my own world. And, when you are self-employed, I think in a small business, you're on this hamster wheel. You never have enough business, so you're always focused on getting more business. You get the business, but then you've got to do the work. But even when you're doing the work of the business that you got, you always know that business is going to end. So you stay on this hamster wheel and you can never relax. And you're always aware that you eat what you kill. If you don't bring in business, you don't survive. And for me, doing what I do, I feel the same way, right? I have a very entrepreneurial bent. I think that bringing in money is really important. Bringing in business is very important, even if you're a diversity professional. No matter what people say or organizations say about what they should do, there are many things that we should do. We should eat less meat and eat more green. We should work out at X amount of hours a week. And oftentimes we don't do what we should do. And organizations are no different, right? We have to incentivize appropriate behavior and good behavior. And bringing in money to incentivize that behavior is important.
And shifting the discussion a little bit, I want to ask you about DELP. This is the Diversity, Equity, and Leadership Program from ASAE, and we've had past DELP scholars on this program, and they have had nothing but great things to say about it. Allie Brown was a guest on our show, Rodnika Scott, and I'm curious what the reflections were of your experience with the DELP program.
It's interesting, even though I've owned my own business, I think owning your own small business is not the same thing as being an executive in a corporation. And I think through DELP, I have learned what it is to be an executive. And maybe I would have learned it anyway. But I think what DELP has done is create a structure by which I can meet and converse and learn from other executives and have conversations that are really just about being an executive. I am not an executive director, but I feel like I have much more of an appreciation of what that entails now. And I feel like, as you could tell from the beginning of the conversation, when I was practicing law, I really focused on my network. I had a huge network because of all the association work I did. And when I started at ESA during a pandemic, I had no network, zero. And so what DELP has done is provide me a structure to create a network.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so it also sounds like maybe DELP helped you kind of fast track your leadership executive experience? Like, yes, you could have gotten this experience, but it might have taken a long time and you would have made some real world mistakes out in the real world. But the way I understand it, was it this program kind of just helped you fast track a lot of that executive leadership experience?
Yes, and it's interesting because, of course, I've had mentors throughout my career, but I've never walked up to someone formally and said, "Will you be my mentor?" And, but for DELP, I never would have. And I did. I walked up to someone and said, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" And she said yes. And I've learned a ton because of that. I didn't know the value of the CAE. I would probably not have taken it because I felt like I passed the California bar. I'm good. And then I took the CAE and I was like, oh, wow, I have learned a lot through studying for the CAE. So I think what in some ways what DELP did was it just gave me a path. It's a list. Do these things. Ask for a mentor. Take the CAE. Go to certain trainings. And I did it.
I love that. Like, I love mentors. I love the idea of it. I feel like flat out asked someone to be my mentor. It's always just kind of been this informal thing. But after you straight up asked her to be your mentor, like, what were the next steps? Did you guys have regular touch base meetings? Like, what happens after you make that formal ask?
So I'll just tell you the name of my mentor. Her name is Wendy Jo Tayama. And she's an executive director, and I met her at an ASAE meeting. She gave a presentation and she was so smart, and I agreed with everything she said, and she said things that I never would have thought of to agree with. And so I just walked up to her and said, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" After an ASAE presentation, which is not what I would normally do, but I did it. And she said, "Send me your resume and let's set up a meeting and see if we're compatible." And then we were compatible. We meet, she travels a lot. I travel a lot, so let's say 8 times a year. She does give me some assignments. I want you to write blank. I want you to come up with your mission statement. What do you want to do? She has probably had a lot of mentors, so I think that she applies what she has liked and her mentors to our relationship.
Has anyone ever asked you to be their mentor? I'm just curious about that too.
No one's asked me to be their mentor, and I don't know that I have. I would say that I have a kitchen cabinet, but not necessarily a mentor, besides Wendy Jo.
And for those that are unfamiliar with the term, can you just explain kitchen cabinet for us?
A kitchen cabinet is a group of friends or colleagues that you call on to help guide you in making decisions. And when I was practicing law, and even now sometimes if I'm upset, I have friends that they know that if I called them, the appropriate response is don't send the email. Just don't send it. Some people I might, if I'm writing something, send it by them for their feedback. Or there are some people who are really good with negotiating salaries, and I would talk to them about that. So a kitchen cabinet, I would say, is a group of people who you're friends with or colleagues with, and they're kind of consultants for particular challenges or issues that come up in life and in the workspace.
And Stacie, switching gears again, I want to ask you about a day in the life of your role with ESA as Director of Equity and Grants. What does it kind of look like? What's your day-to-day? How do you put all of that illustrious background of your law degree, of your law practice, and all the other amazing experience that you have, especially with the DELP program? How do you put all that to work in your day-to-day with ESA?
Well, like everybody, my work is seasonal. I feel like my work year focuses around 2 things. One is our annual meeting, So there's everything, the annual meeting happens. There's the slowdown after the annual meeting, the planning for the next annual meeting through the annual meeting. And then the other part of my year is really formed around an internship fellowship program that I run. ESA has partnered with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to create public health entomology for all. So we have about 9 or 10 fellows, and we have 6 interns during the summer. And a lot of my work focuses around recruiting, selecting, and then supporting.
Love it. And so tell me more about ESA. As the Entomological Society of America, our listeners, I'm sure, are curious. Is there any really cool, innovative things going on at ESA or anything else we want to, make mention of?
Well, I don't know if PIPA is Public Health Entomology for All is innovative. It's new to us. I think that I know that we focus on increasing diversity and inclusion in the public health entomology space. And I think that's wonderful. We're starting to recruit or select our 3rd class of fellows and interns. ESA has an annual meeting, about 3,700 people attended. This year we were in National Harbor. Next year we'll be in Phoenix, or in November we'll be in Phoenix. 7,000 members. And we support insect scientists.
And Stacie, as we work towards wrapping up, it wouldn't be an episode of 6 Degrees of Associations without me asking, is there someone in your network or someone that you have, worked with that you really think our listeners would appreciate hearing from on our show?
So I'm going to suggest Wendy Jo Toyama. Since we've mentioned her, my mentor, I think she's one of the smartest people I've met and smartest and most gracious people I've met since becoming an association professional.
All right. We look forward to that conversation with Wendy Jo Toyama. Stay tuned for that episode. You've been listening to the Director of Equity and Grants with Entomological Society of America, ESA. This has been Stacie East. And Stacie, thanks again for your time today. I look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Perfect. Thank you.